John Smith pulled into his garage and pressed the button, closing the door behind him. He saw his wife's car, a Toyota, in the garage and was looking forward to seeing her. The journey was long, and he missed the nights spent in bed with her. For a moment, he thought about his life. Although John Smith was the name the government gave him, it was not his real name. He was born to Bill and Frieda Munster and named Herman. They seemed to have a soft spot for old sitcoms and were known for their quirky sense of humor. They might have thought it was funny, but he didn't think so. He spent most of his childhood trying to get rid of this name, and he received punishment for it at training camps. After high school, he did what many did in the small Texas town where he grew up and enlisted in the Army. He spent 6 years in the Marines, 2 of them in what was affectionately known as the sandbox, and caught the attention of recruiters who thought he would be a good fit for their organization. So, after 6 years of service in the Marine Corps, he joined an organization called Sector Alpha, a secret government structure that no one was supposed to know about. Part of the reason he was suited for the job was that he did not fit the image or demeanor of a secret agent. At first glance, he was an ordinary man of average height and build, doing an ordinary job. He had a generally friendly disposition and was not inclined to act like a rude person. He was someone who could disappear unnoticed in a crowd if he wanted. According to others, he maintained systems for an international software corporation, and the people from Alpha Sector, also known as the Company, ensured that anyone who checked him out simply assumed he was just another nerd. Among those who thought he was a regular guy was his wife, Houston, to whom he was married for 4 years. Yes, that was her name. She was born to Fred and Alexa McIntosh, and he met her while attending a computer course the company sent him to bolster his legend. Her parents named her after the city where she was conceived. He was just glad they didn't conceive her in a ghost town called Two Hans in Arizona. They dated for several months, fell in love, and he proposed to her after the company vetted her and gave its approval. After graduation, she began working as a legal secretary for a downtown law firm, Omega Legal Services, Inc. She was a warm, loving person, a very good cook, and fun in bed. The only thing that bothered him was that she was sometimes a little gullible and naive. When they married, she knew his job required frequent travel, and she never seemed to complain. After all, the most pleasant thing about business trips were meetings after separation. Of course, she couldn't know what he was really doing. For her, he simply traveled to clients around the world, solving software problems. This was partly true. He actually did software updates and systems maintenance. But this was only a cover for his real work collecting information. This information was analyzed, filtered, and combined with other data, turning into full-fledged intelligence. He didn't know what they did with them afterwards, and frankly speaking, he didn't care. Sometimes, although not often, he had to use his special training. On this last trip, one of those incidents happened, and as always, it left him in a bad mood. He hoped that a quiet evening in bed with his beautiful wife would make him feel better. He walked into the house and immediately smelled the aroma of lasagna, his favorite dish. Well, one of my favorites. Houston was an excellent cook, and he loved everything she cooked. He walked into the dining room and saw that she had even set the table using the expensive china her parents had given them for their wedding. Yes, he thought, this evening would definitely be a good one. He turned to go upstairs when he suddenly saw her coming down the stairs. His eyes nearly popped out of their sockets when he saw her in that outfit. Houston looked great in any outfit, but this black dress left little to no room for imagination. It was the shortest dress he had ever seen on her, barely covering her firm buttocks. It was open-backed and had 2 strips of fabric that barely covered her B-cup breasts and tied behind her neck. Her long dark hair hung loosely over her shoulders, and the ensemble was completed with high heels. "How do you like it?" she asked, turning around and showing off the dress. He saw that she was wearing only tiny panties underneath, and he had a hard time restraining himself from tearing them off her right then and there. "Damn," he said. "You look absolutely amazing." She giggled as he picked her up. "Careful," she said. "I don't want you to ruin my makeup." "So what's the special occasion?" he asked. I see you got expensive porcelain. Only the best for our guest, she replied. Guest? He was surprised. But there are only 2 plates here. Where will our guest sit? At the head of the table, of course, she replied. At this moment, he had a very bad feeling. Where should I sit? He asked. Where is my plate? I'll explain everything, she said. But first we need to talk. He didn't like it at all. About what? He asked. Perhaps we should sit down, she suggested. Maybe it's worth it, he said, sitting down in a chair. He saw that she was clearly nervous about something. She sat down on the sofa opposite him. First of all, who is this guest? This is my boss, Greg Wilson, she said. You mean this Lovelace? He asked. The same guy who considers himself a gift from heaven to all women. That's how you perceive him, she replied. But he is actually a very nice person, and I'm sure you'll like him if you spend some time with him. I doubt it very much, John said, but continue. You remember I told you about the new position I'm applying for, she asked. Yeah, something like an executive team member position, he clarified. Yes, exactly, she confirmed. Greg and the other partners are evaluating me and a few other girls for the position, and it looks like I might get it. This will mean a lot more money for us, and also means that I will have to travel sometimes, to New York and Paris, for example. Isn't that great? What else does this mean? He asked, seeing that she became even more nervous. This means that I may have to, provide additional services to Greg and the partners, she said. Maybe even help them attract new contracts. And by extras you mean sex? He asked directly. Well, yes, she replied, but it won't affect us. In fact, it will even be beneficial for us. And then Greg says that all men dream of seeing their wife have sex with another man. What else did Greg tell you? He asked, barely suppressing the urge to hit the wall. Well, he said that from now on I should call you cuckold and not let you have sex with me without his permission, she added. And tonight he's going to help me make your dream come true. Well, Houston, John said, it seems we have a problem. Problem? She asked again. I don't understand. First of all, have I ever given you any reason to think that I want to see you with another man? He asked. You never said it outright, but Greg says that most men don't realize that they're actually cuckolds at heart, she explained. According to him, the male should teach them this. I see, he said. So am I correct in understanding that you invited this Greg guy over to my house to eat my food at my table using our nice china, and then you're going to let him have sex with you in our bed? Did I understand correctly? Yes, almost like that, she said. Oh, John, this is fun. He said you'll really like it once you get used to it. Did he say that? Asked John. Yes, she confirmed. He said you might be upset at first, but you'll get used to it over time. Have you slept with him yet? He asked. Oh, no, I didn't sleep, she replied. He made it clear that the first time should happen before your eyes. It's clear. Let's get something straight, John said. First of all, if you ever call me a cuckold, either to my face or behind my back, I swear I will kill you on the spot, he said with a smile on his face. And believe me, no one will ever find your body. Her eyes widened in fear. She did not expect such words from her husband, who had never shown any inclination to violence. Secondly, if this Greg shows up here and doesn't show me respect in my house, I will turn him inside out, he said, still smiling. Thirdly, if you love me and want to remain my wife, call him right now and tell him not to come, and then quit your job. Understood? Of course I love you and want to stay with you, she said. It's just sex. It doesn't mean anything. It means everything, he replied. Call. I can't, she said. Why? He asked. Because he's already on his way here, she replied. He will be here any minute. Can I ask you one question? He asked. Which? She answered, scared. Do you really want to stay married to me? He asked. Yes, of course, she replied. Then go upstairs and change now, he said. And don't get in the way. I'll take over Greg. But he's much bigger than you, she objected. He plays sports and knows karate. You're just a programmer. He might hurt you. Leave it to me, he said. Now go and change clothes. Alive. She shuddered and ran upstairs, crying. John was left wondering what to do with his unfaithful wife. Divorce was ruled out because there was too much chance that his real life might be revealed. The agency had its own ways of solving such problems, but he did not like the idea of turning her into a mindless creature. He trusted her that she didn't cheat on him, but there was always a risk that it could happen again. While he was thinking, he heard the doorbell ring. He opened the door and saw a tall, well-built man. "You must be Greg," John said. "Yes, it's me," Greg answered with a grin, entering the house and deliberately brushing John's shoulder. John hated it when people did that and could barely stop himself from snapping his neck. "Well, come in," John said, closing the door. "I don't mind," Greg replied. He looked John up and down before speaking again. "So you're that cuckold?" Greg chuckled. "Yes," John decided. "This guy needs to die." "No," John said calmly. "I'm Houston's husband." "A husband and a cuckold are the same thing," Greg said scornfully. "Bring me something to drink." "Fuck you," John replied. "I'm not your damn servant." "What did you tell me, cuckold?" Greg asked, clearly irritated. No one had ever spoken to him in such a tone. "Who is this little dude to talk to me like that?" Greg thought. "I said screw you," John repeated. "Are you stupid or also deaf?" "I'll trample you into the ground for saying something like that," Greg barked. "Do you even know who I am?" "Yes," said John. "You are the one who puts nonsense into my wife's head." "Speaking of your wife," Greg interrupted, "where is she?" "She's getting dressed," John replied. "Oh, here she comes." Houston walked down the stairs in jeans and a t-shirt. Greg looked at her and frowned. "Why didn't you wear the dress I bought you?" he asked. "I told you that you should wear this dress tonight." "I decided I didn't want to wear it," she said. Greg's face turned red with rage, and he turned to John. "I told her to wear this dress for me," he said. "I demand that she go and change her clothes." "You know what, asshole?" John replied. "Why don't the three of us discuss this in my office?" "There's nothing to discuss here," Greg replied irritably. "Great," John said. "Then I'll just kill you right here. Will this work?" "Is this a threat?" Greg said, starting to seethe with anger. John smiled. Everything was too easy. "I'm not making any threats," John replied calmly. Houston tried to intervene, but John raised his hand to stop her. "Just 5 minutes in my office. If you still stand on your feet after this, then you can do whatever you want with my almost ex-wife." Houston gasped when she heard those words, and Greg got an even more smug grin on his face. "I was the state karate champion 2 years in a row," Greg boasted. "Do you seriously want to challenge me?" 5 minutes, John repeated. "Only 5 minutes. I don't ask for anything more." "Okay, little dude," Greg said. "I'll give you your 5 minutes, but I promise that in the end, you'll be begging for mercy." John pointed to the door leading to his basement, his office. As Greg headed for the door, John motioned for Houston to follow them. "That goes for you too, Houston," he said. She looked at him in confusion. This was a new appearance of her husband for her, and he frightened her. She slowly followed Greg into the basement. John followed, turning on the lights and activating the security camera. Once downstairs, John invited Houston to sit on a chair against the wall. Greg turned to John with a sneer. "Well, brave man, what now?" he asked. "Waiting for you to do something," John replied calmly. "What, you can't attack a person who is looking you straight in the eyes? Okay, I'll get on my knees." "How do you like that?" he said, kneeling down. "Maybe I should also put my hands behind my back. How do you like that?" He put his hands behind his back and looked up at Greg. "Now, I think the forces are almost equal, right? Come on, show the lady what you can do. Or are you afraid to attack a man kneeling with his hands behind his back?" "That's it, you bastard," Greg barked. "It could have been resolved in a good way, but you wanted to do it in a bad way. Well, get it." In a matter of seconds, I dealt with Greg. If anyone asks, you slipped on the soap. Understood, John asked quietly. Greg nodded his head. Sorry, I didn't hear, John said. I got it, Greg managed. Well, that's good, said John. And remember, I know 1,000 ways to kill you. If you try to hurt me again, you'll recognize some of them. Now say, good night, Gracie, he added, and disconnected Greg. John stood up and pulled out his phone. We need to clean up the second line, he said, and an inspector will be needed. Thank you. He ended the call and looked at Houston, who was sitting in her chair, shocked and scared. He, she began. Dead? Asked John. No, but he will have a terrible headache when he wakes up. Who are you? She asked. What, you don't recognize your own husband? He answered. I never knew you were capable of this, she said. I thought you were just a programmer. What can I say? John answered with a grin. All programmers can do this. She shook her head. No, not all, she objected. I've seen Greg defeat people much bigger than you. I saw him break bricks and boards, and you knocked him down in a few seconds. He didn't stand a chance. No matter how big and strong you think you are, there will always be someone bigger and stronger, John said. I was motivated and angry. He's lucky I didn't kill him. What will happen to us now? She asked. John looked at her. It depends, he replied. From what? She asked. It depends on how truthful you will be when the inspector arrives, said John. Inspector? She asked again. What is this? This is a tool that my company uses to confirm someone's testimony, he explained. What will happen if I don't pass? She asked. It's better not to think about it, John replied. Did you really mean what you said about killing me if I called you that word? She asked, and a tear rolled down her cheek. John looked at her and nodded. Yes, he said. She trembled with fear, and he decided that she deserved an explanation. You see, my mother cheated on my father for many years. He thought about divorce, but realized that it would cost him more than he could afford. He would lose his house, lose half of everything he earned, and become a father who sees his children on weekends. He was a broken man, but at least he remained close to us children. So he decided to endure. He hated her all this time, and we all saw how it destroyed him. Our mother didn't care about him and continued to abuse him, even though he worked his hardest for all of us. She humiliated him and called him that word every day, and it literally ate him up from the inside. After my little brother left for college, my father threw his wedding ring in the toilet, drove to the bar where he usually hung out, drank a couple of beers, said goodbye to his friends, and then drove to the cliff where he died. Oh my God, I didn't know that, she said. I'm so sorry that I believed Greg's nonsense. Can you ever forgive me? Ask me about it after the check is completed, John replied. At that moment, the doorbell rang. John quickly went upstairs and opened the door. 3 men in white suits entered the house. 2 of them lifted Greg onto a stretcher and took him to the ambulance waiting outside. The 3rd man opened the case and pulled out a tablet with some kind of device attached to the camera. Well, miss, the inspector began, we will now record your testimony. This device measures galvanic skin response and several other indicators. It is much more accurate than a regular lie detector. Just answer the questions honestly. First, state your full married name. Houston Smith, she replied, without a patronymic. Tell me your age, the inspector continued. 26, she said. The inspector looked at John and nodded. Houston, have you ever cheated on me since we got engaged? Asked John. No, she shook her head. You have not had any sexual relations with a man or woman during this time, he continued. No, never, she shook her head again. Have you allowed anyone to touch you intimately during this time? He asked. No, no one touched me that way, she replied. Were you planning on having sex with Greg in our marital bed tonight? John asked with a trembling voice. Tears streamed down her face as she replied. Yes, she said, sobbing. Why? He asked. Because he said you would want it and that you loved me enough to allow it, she said. What else did he tell you? John asked, trying to keep his tone neutral. He said that all married men dream of seeing their wives have sex with another man, she replied. And you believed him? Asked John. Yes, she said. Forgive me, John. You go away so often, and I really thought it would make you happy. Have you been offered a position that requires you to have sexual relations with company management? He asked. Yes, she replied. Would this position require you to have sex with clients and potential clients? John clarified. I think so, she said. Were you convinced that I would approve of this? He continued. They said you will resist at first, but then you will accept it, she replied. They said what would happen if I didn't take it, asked John. They said it wouldn't end well for you, she said. Was that taken as a threat? He clarified. Yes, she replied. Are some women at your company required to have sex with management? He asked. Yes, some, she said. As far as you know, do their partners approve of this? John continued. As far as I know, yes, she replied. Have you talked to them about this in person? With partners? He asked. No, not in person, she replied. A couple of women told me that over time they appreciated it and got extra money for it. So other women get paid extra for having sex with management and clients, he asked. Yes, she confirmed. Do you love me? He asked. She burst into tears. Yes, more than anything else, she replied. Are you ready to quit right now? He asked. Yes, of course, she replied. Are you ready to sue the company if necessary? He asked the next question. She nodded her head. Yes, I will do everything to make it up to you, she replied. Are you telling me all this because you think I want to hear it? He asked. She shook her head. No, John, she said. I'm really sorry. I was a fool and believed the nonsense that Greg and other women told me how wonderful and wonderful it was. Please believe me. John looked at the inspector's tablet, then at the inspector himself, who nodded. Well, Houston, John said, that's all for now. Stay here. I'll be back soon. She nodded, and John and the inspector walked up the stairs. Well, John asked when they were alone in the living room. The test shows that she is telling the truth, the man said. By the way, Alpha One wants to talk to you. The man opened the app on his tablet, and the face of John's superior, Regis Carlyle, also known as Alpha One, appeared on the screen. His one living eye looked intently at John. John, Regis said, I heard you had an interesting homecoming. Yes, boss, John replied. It's been better. I see, Regis said. I saw the results of the inspection. What are your plans? My instinct is to get her out the door, John admitted. Regis nodded his head. No one would judge you for that, John, he said. But before you make a decision, you should know the full picture. What other picture? Asked John. If you file for divorce, there is a chance that your relationship with Alpha could be exposed, Regis said. And that would be sad, if you know what I mean, both for you and for her. I understand, John said. Alpha Sector left no loose ends. If he had been exposed, especially in court proceedings, it could have cost him his life and Houston's. And he knew that Regis did not hesitate to kill people, even if they were close to him. Great, Regis said. You should also know that we have been monitoring Omega for a long time, thanks to some data you brought back on recent trips. This was news to John. Which means we were watching your wife too, he added. This didn't surprise John. And I can tell you that while your wife has shown extreme poor judgment, she hasn't crossed the line yet. I'm glad to hear it, John replied. Can you tell me more about Omega? Not on this connection, Regis said. But I think it's time to bring Houston out of the shadows, so to speak. After all, you lived a lie for several years. Do you think you can do it? I think so, John said. Regis nodded. Okay, he replied. Don't tell her too much, only what is needed to interest her. Tomorrow morning, I'll be waiting for you both in my office at 7 o'clock sharp. But she doesn't have clearance, John said. Are you going to recruit her? By tomorrow morning, she will have access, Regis said. And in fact, she has already been recruited. She just doesn't know about it yet. John considered his boss's words. If this is true, Houston would have little choice but to cooperate. He didn't want to think about what the alternatives might be. So eat that lasagna you have in the oven and let her have sex with you tonight and bring her to me by 7 o'clock. Is everything clear? Okay, boss, John replied. By the way, technically you were wrong to let Greg live, Regis said. How is he doing, by the way? Asked John. Well, he slipped badly on the soap. Now in a coma, under anesthesia, Regis said. When and if he comes out of his coma, he will have amnesia. We might be able to get a confession out of him, but I'm not sure. Don't worry, we'll take care of his memory if it becomes a problem. John nodded in understanding. See you tomorrow, Regis said with a smile, then ended the call. John looked at the man with the tablet. He shrugged, put the device away, and headed towards the door. See you later, he said as he walked out. John went back downstairs as soon as the door closed behind the inspector. He found Houston still sitting in the chair, wiping away tears. She looked up at him sadly as he entered. He sat down in front of her and looked into her eyes. I really screwed up, huh? She asked. John nodded. Yes, he said. Very much. I'm sorry, John, she said. I truly believe the bullshit that Greg and the other woman told me. I never thought you would react this way. The last thing I wanted was to hurt you. I'll pack my things and leave. You deserve someone better than me. She stood up, but he stopped her. Stay still, John said. I accept your apology, and I owe you an apology too. For what? She was surprised. You didn't do anything. I need to apologize for leaving you alone so often, he said. My job. It's difficult. I understand, she said. John shook his head. No, you don't understand, he replied. For starters, John Smith is not the name I was born with. What? She asked. Then who are you? And was that story about your father true? Or was it a lie? No, the story about my father is real, he said. I was born to Bill and Frietta Munster in a small town in North Texas, near the Red River. They thought it would be fun to call me Herman. Herman? She asked again. As in? She began, but he interrupted her. Yes, he replied as she giggled. What's so funny? Your real name, she said, laughing. Sorry, but this is really funny. Well, there was nothing funny growing up with that name, trust me, John said. However, after I served in the Marines, my name was changed to John Smith. Were you in the Marines? She asked in surprise. I didn't know that. There's a lot you didn't know about me, he said, and perhaps it's time for you to find out something. Do you think that lasagna is still warm? Yes, she replied. It just sits in the oven to keep it warm. Great, he said. Why don't we eat lasagna, and I'll tell you a story. Does this mean you forgive me? She asked. We'll see, he replied, standing up. Will you join me for dinner? He asked, holding out his hand to her. She smiled, took his hand, and stood up too. Houston sat in silence and listened as her husband, John, told his story, the one he had been hiding for the past 5 years or so. She barely touched her lasagna as he talked about his childhood as Herman Munster and his service, including 2 combat tours overseas. He, on the other hand, was gulping down his food as he talked about how he had been recruited into an organization called Sector Alpha, a government intelligence agency she had never heard of. He explained the reason for the name change and assured her that everything was legal and official. But you don't look like the kind of person who works as a secret agent, she said quietly. He chuckled. What, you think everyone should look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or the latest actor to play James Bond? He asked. Well, I thought so, she replied. He laughed again. Believe me, you've seen too many movies, he said. The last thing the company wants is a person who stands out in the crowd. The more inconspicuous and ordinary, the better. And no, I don't wear tuxedos and cruise around fancy casinos in Monaco or anything like that. Hell, most of my work is pretty boring. All I do is collect information. That's it. I returned it, and others are already analyzing it. Most of the time, I don't even know what it's about. What about what happened with Greg? She asked. Did they teach you how to do this? He nodded. Yes, most of it, he said. I already had martial arts training, so they just expanded on what I already knew. Luckily, I don't have to use it often, but it's nice to know I can defend myself if I have to. What kind of belt do you have? She asked. Greg said he was a 5th-degree black belt. I have a leather one, he answered with a smile. Leather? She asked again. I've never heard of this. It says so on the tag, he said, showing her his work belt. You're a sly one, she said with a smile, jokingly slapping him on the arm. Her face became serious after a few moments. What will happen now? With us? He stopped chewing for a moment and thought for a moment before answering. It's up to you, he said. Tomorrow morning we will go to my boss. If you think I'm strict, wait until you meet him. What time do we need to be there? She asked. He said 7 which means we better be there by 6:45, he replied. Regis hates being kept waiting, and since it takes about an hour to get there, we need to leave the house at 5:30, so maybe we should go to bed early. She took his hand. John, I'm serious. I never meant to hurt you, she said. Well, you did it, he said, and it will take a lot of effort to cope with this. Believe me, the only reason you're still here is because you didn't have the opportunity to complete what you planned to do. I just want to know why. What the hell made you think I could like something like that? This didn't happen in one day. How long did it take them to set you up? A little over a couple of months in total, she said. But the strongest pressure began a couple of weeks ago. Greg and other girls showed me articles on the internet that said all the guys liked it. They kept pressing, creating the impression that it was so wonderful. At first I said no, but they kept pushing. Then I talked to the head of this team, and she convinced me that this was the best thing that happened to her marriage. But you never spoke directly to the spouses, he said. So you don't actually know if they were telling you the truth. What's worse is that you never talked to me about it. I just can't believe you were naive enough to believe this. They told me not to tell you, she said. They were going to surprise you. That's what Greg was going to do tonight. Well, that didn't work out too well for him, did it? Said John. No, it didn't work, she answered quietly. You said before that they threatened to do something if I didn't go along with their plan, he said. What exactly did they threaten to do? They told me that they would send the security forces after you, she said. Silovicki? John asked. What is this? This is the company's private security, she said. Greg was in charge of them. They ensure the safety of management and their staff. I understand, he said. And as far as I understand, they are all former military men? She nodded her head. Yes, she replied. These are essentially hired guerrillas. Huge, evil, ugly, whatever you want to call them. It's scary to even think about them. That means they won't be very happy with what happened to their boss, John said. Probably not, she said. They said what exactly could happen to me, he asked. They implied that you might have an accident or your car's brakes would fail or that you might get attacked, she said. They said that a lot of bad things could happen to you. I understand, he said. Well, we'll just have to make sure that doesn't happen, won't we? I wouldn't mind if something happened to you, she said. Everything will be fine, he said, trying to calm her down. In fact, John was worried too, but he didn't want to show it. Why don't we go to bed now and deal with this tomorrow? She smiled. Okay, she said. I'll sort out the dishes. He watched as she stood up to clear the table. While she cleaned everything up, he double-checked the house's security system to make sure everything was in order for the night. He then went into his office and opened the gun safe, took out a .45 caliber pistol, and checked that the magazine was fully loaded, then placed it in his bedside table so that it was within easy reach. Then he went upstairs and got ready for bed. He remembered what Regis had told him. Let her squeeze the juice out of you tonight. John intended to do just that. He lay in bed and watched as his wife slid under the covers. They had sex. I love you so much, she said. You are the only man in my life, and I will never be with another. I hope you believe me." "Of course," he replied. He didn't want to think about other options at this moment. They hugged each other tightly and fell asleep peacefully. They woke up early in the morning and began to get ready for the road. John quickly showered and shaved while Houston went downstairs to make coffee. She went back upstairs and showered while he got dressed. He went downstairs and double-checked the security system, making sure everything was set up correctly. If someone tries to break into the house, it will be recorded on video surveillance. He poured a cup of coffee for each of them and warmed up a couple of breakfast rolls to take with him on the road. By that time, Houston had already descended and was ready to go. They grabbed their cups of coffee and muffins and headed to the car. Houston had no idea where her husband's office was and was stunned when they pulled up to what looked like a junkyard in the middle of nowhere. "Do you work at the landfill?" she asked in surprise. He smiled as he answered. "Not everything is as it seems," he said as he pulled up to what looked like a portable toilet. She looked at him even more confused. "Oh, please don't tell me you work in a composting toilet," she said. He laughed and turned off the car. "Remember what I just said," he replied. "By the way, give me your phone." She took it out of her purse and handed it to him. John unlocked the phone and, after a few quick movements of his fingers, handed it back to her. "I almost screwed up big time," he said. "I disabled the tracking software they installed on your phone. Hopefully, they won't be able to track us now." "Were they following me?" she asked. "Yes," he confirmed. "Let's go. Regis is already waiting for us." She got out of the car and watched as John walked to the portable toilet and opened the door. He invited her to come in first. She walked inside and looked around as he joined her. "At least it doesn't smell," she said. John smiled and locked the door from the inside. Soon they felt the small room begin to descend. At that moment, she realized that it was an elevator. The elevator descended for quite some time before it stopped, and the door automatically opened. John motioned for her to leave first, and as soon as she did, a guard in a green camouflage uniform approached her and demanded to see her identification. She pulled out her driver's license and handed it to him. The guard scanned the barcode and looked at the screen for a few seconds, then held the device to her eye. "Don't move," he said as the red beam scanned her retina. He looked at the screen again and nodded. He repeated the same procedure with John. "Come on in, Alpha 1 is waiting for you both," the guard said. John motioned for Houston to follow him down the long, empty hallway. At the end of the corridor, another door automatically opened, through which they walked. They found themselves in a large marble foyer with an insignia on the floor. It said Alpha Sector on it. The caption read, "First line of defense." On one of the walls, Houston noticed an inscription, "Our enemies do not sleep, and so do we." John invited her to stand on the large round emblem. As she did so, the emblem began to lower, and they found themselves in another large room filled with monitors and people talking quietly into microphones. While they were looking around, a large man with a disfigured face, an eye patch, and a short haircut approached them. "Regis Carlisle," he said, extending his hand to Houston. "Everyone here calls me Alpha 1, but you can call me Mr. Carlisle or Regis. You must be Houston. Nice to meet you." "Yes, it's me," she said. "Nice to meet you." "An interesting name for a woman is Houston," he said. "My parents named me that because they said I was conceived in Houston," she replied. He nodded. "Well, you're lucky they didn't conceive you in Todd Sack, Arkansas, right?" he said with a smile. "Probably so," she agreed. "Please come into my office," he said, turning around. They followed him into an office with transparent walls. The door closed silently behind them, and the glass instantly darkened so that no one outside could see them. "Sorry, Regis, but I've never heard of Alpha Sector," Houston said. "And that's good," Regis replied. "If you heard, it would mean that we have a mole, and someone would have to die." "Oh," she said, "so what are you guys doing?" "We collect information from around the world, analyze it, and either pass it on or take action if necessary," Regis said. "Your husband is one of our information gathering specialists." He looked at John before continuing. By the way, Mr. Wilson is still breathing, although he is in a medically induced coma. I saw how you dealt with him last night. Impressive. Thank you, John said. But it was stupid of you to kneel, Regis added. Sorry, Regis, I thought it was the right move at the time, John replied. Regis nodded. Well, just don't do that again, he said. So, how long have you known about the leadership support team? He asked Houston. I think about 2 or 3 months, she replied. What did they tell you about it first? He asked. Well, they said it was a prestigious team in the firm that supported the executives and senior partners, she replied. They said they only select certain employees and that it would mean a lot of travel for me, but I would get a big promotion and bonuses. And John will also receive a bonus from the company. When did you learn about the sexual aspect of the job? Regis asked, his one eye narrowing. About 2 weeks ago, she replied. When John was on his last mission, right? Regis clarified. She nodded. Yes, she said. The head of the team, Linda Wharton, invited me into her private conference room and told me about it. Yes, she did, Regis said, pressing a few buttons on his computer. Look. An image of a beautifully furnished conference room appeared on the large screen behind Regis. The camera seemed to be mounted somewhere high on the wall. Houston gasped when she saw this. How did you get this? She asked. This is Linda's private conference room. Through the camera built into the TV on the wall, Regis answered calmly. You've heard stories about this, haven't you? They have been circulating on the internet for a long time. I thought it was just a conspiracy theory, she said. He smiled. That's exactly what you should have thought, he replied. Now look. He pressed the button, and the video began to play. The screen showed Houston entering the room, followed by Linda. Why don't you sit down, Houston? Linda said. Would you like some coffee? Oh yeah, that would be great, Houston replied. They watched as she sat down and Linda turned to pour the coffee. She glanced at Houston briefly and then poured something into the hot drink. Stop, John said. Regis paused the video. What does Linda do with the coffee? Asked John. Good observation, Regis said. It looks like she's putting some kind of drug in the drink. We'll come back to this a little later. He pressed the button again, and the video continued. You drink coffee with sugar, right, Houston? Linda asked. Yes, a little, Houston replied. Linda poured 2 spoons of sugar and stirred the coffee, then handed it to Houston, who took a sip. Great, she said. Thank you. Linda sat down opposite. So, Houston, Linda began, I just spoke to the senior partners, and they are thrilled that you can join the team. Oh, this is wonderful, Houston said, her voice filled with joy. But before we continue, I need to discuss a couple of things with you, Linda said. First of all, how are things going with your husband, John? He's on a business trip right now, right? Linda asked. Houston nodded. Yeah, he left last night, and he'll be gone for about 2 weeks, Houston said. Does he know you're being considered for the team? Linda asked. Yes, and he's excited for me to have the opportunity to grow within the firm, Houston said. So he supports you, Linda clarified. Oh yeah, he's the most supportive and loving husband you could ever ask for, Houston replied with a smile. I'm glad to hear that, Linda said. Now what I'm about to tell you may be a little shocking, but believe me, you'll appreciate it later. And it's important that your husband supports you. This will be decisive. Oh yeah, he's very supportive, Houston said. All he wants is for me to be happy. That's even better, Linda said, because there is one aspect of the work that we haven't told you about yet. Which? Houston asked. All team members are required to provide, shall we say, personal services to the managers and senior partners, Linda said calmly, and sometimes to clients or potential clients. Houston took a sip of her coffee before answering. What do you mean by personal? She asked. To put it bluntly, sexy, Linda replied. That's why it's so important that you have a good relationship with your husband. Do you mean that I am expected to cheat on my husband? Houston asked in shock. Not really, Linda replied. Because by the time you start working in a team, your husband will want it himself, and we will help him with this. This is partly why he will also receive bonuses from the company. I don't know if I can do this, Houston said. I know it's shocking, Linda said. Every new team member is shocked by this. But trust me, everything will be all right. By the time we explain everything to your husband, he will be more than happy to see you getting satisfied. Besides, did you know that every married man wants to see his wife having sex with other men? I didn't know that, Houston responded. It's true, Linda said. Most of them are too embarrassed to admit it, but deep down it is one of their biggest fantasies. John never said he wanted to see me with another man, Houston said. Of course not, said Linda. He's probably afraid that you'll think he's a weakling or something. But believe me, guys love the thought of it, or even two. I'll send you some links to stories that will just blow your mind. You want to be part of this team, don't you? Yes, of course I do, Houston replied. I just don't want to do anything that hurts my marriage or John. Don't worry about your husband, Linda said. We'll take care of it. You just focus on your work and read the materials I send you. What about other women? Houston asked. What do their husbands think? They're quite happy, Linda said. They get a good check every month, and their wives show them everything they've learned. You'll be amazed at how your sex life with John will change. Trust me. What should I tell him? Houston asked. Don't say anything, Linda replied. At least for now. Like I said, we'll take care of it for you. Okay, Houston said, if you say so. My girl, Linda said. Now go back to your business, and we'll talk later, okay? Okay, Linda, Houston said. Thank you for the coffee. She finished her cup and left the room. Linda watched her leave with a smug smile on her face. Regis paused the video and looked at Houston. How did you feel after this meeting? He asked. I was shocked and confused at first, she said. But then something happened. I don't know what. You're starting to feel excited, aren't you? He asked. You started thinking about what she said, and it turned you on. Right? She nodded slowly. Yes, she said, her face turning red. I had to go to the toilet. Probably because of what Linda put in your coffee, Regis said. I suspect that you experienced similar feelings after every conversation about the team, right? Yes, Houston said quietly. Regis nodded. There's more, he added, including another video. This time the image was taken in Linda's office. The video began with Linda picking up the phone and calling. A man answered on the other end of the line. George, this is Linda, she said in the video. I just talked to Houston Smith. So how? They heard a man's voice. Does she agree? I'm working on it, Linda replied. I think she will agree. I sent her some links to stories that I thought would get her thinking. You mean they'll turn her on, right? He asked. Linda chuckled. Yes, that too, she said. Her husband will be gone for a couple of weeks, right? Asked George. Yes, Linda replied. So I have enough time to prepare for it. By the time he returns, she will be ready to sleep with an entire battalion right in front of him. Heh, he laughed. I would like to see this, only after I use it first. So how do you plan to pull this off? Linda asked. Don't worry, I'll take care of Mr. Smith, he said. You focus on preparing her for partners. And as soon as he returns, Greg will start raising him. If Smith starts to interfere with us, I will send the security forces to deal with him. Be careful, Linda warned. Houston is naive, but she loves her husband. If you do anything to him, we'll lose her. If that's the case, we'll just speed up our plan, George replied. I already have buyers in the Middle East who will be happy to receive it. John and Houston exchanged shocked glances. Well, take your time, Linda said. Give me 2 weeks to prepare it. Once Greg and the partners are done with her, do whatever you want with her. Don't screw it up, Linda, he said. Don't forget who the main object is here. I have everything under control, George, she replied. Keep your dogs on a leash, okay? 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks, he said, after which the connection was cut off. Regis paused the video. Who is George? John asked Houston. George Black, she replied. He is the main partner in the firm. John looked at Regis, anger blazing in his eyes. And you knew about this? He asked. Calm down, John, Regis replied. You know how it works. You were overseas on a mission. I couldn't let anything distract you from your work. You understand this yourself. Besides, I was confident that you could deal with Greg, and you did. If things got out of hand, I knew you would give the signal. You're not a trained SEAL who claps your hands on command. You are a trained agent. Your job is to improvise, adapt, overcome. He took a deep breath before continuing. By the way, there are more videos if you want to watch them. Most of them are conversations Houston has with Linda and Greg, repeating things she's already told you. Other videos show Houston talking to other women on the team. And in each of these videos, Houston is given a dose of some substance. They were preparing you for your fall, John, while she was gradually being turned into their tool, and they almost succeeded. He looked at Houston before continuing. But I don't think you were the main target, he told her. You were bait. I think the main target was John and the Alpha Sector. You heard what George said about buyers in the Middle East? Yes, John confirmed. We believe the Omega partners are involved in a human trafficking network with international connections, Regis explained. You were their last victim. Oh my God, she whispered. Regis brought up photographs of 5 women. These 5 women have gone missing in the last 2 years, he said. And they all have one thing in common: they worked for Omega. Did you know any of them? Yeah, I knew a couple of them, Houston replied. They said they were being transferred to another department, and I never saw them again. Neither did their husbands see them, Regis added. They continued to be paid salaries and were told that their wives were on business trips. After some time, after not hearing from their wives, the husbands filed missing persons reports. There was no further news about the women. We believe they were sold into slavery, just like it could happen to you, Houston. Is there any chance of getting them back? She asked. Regis shook his head. I doubt it, he replied. Honestly, I'll be surprised if they're still alive. So what now? Asked John. Obviously, Houston cannot return to the company. No, it can't, Regis agreed. Besides, I think the company has already come for her. What do you mean? Asked John. Regis clicked on his computer and brought up the video from the camera installed in John and Houston's living room. There were 4 large men in dark suits and sunglasses in the room, and Linda with them. What the hell? John exclaimed, stunned. How were they able to bypass our security system? Good question, Regis said, looking at Houston. Honestly, I didn't give them the code, she said nervously. We'll see what they do, Regis replied, turning his attention back to the video. They're not here, one of the large men said to Linda. She pulled out her phone and stared at the screen for a moment before tapping on it. A few seconds later, Houston's phone rang. Regis nodded at her, indicating that she should answer. She took out her phone and answered the call. Houston, where are you? Linda's voice came through the speaker on the video. John and I are not at home, she replied. What happened to Greg last night? Linda demanded. I don't know, Houston responded. I think he slipped on a bar of soap or something. It was one hell of a soap, Linda said. He's in a coma. What the hell happened last night? Greg got into a fight with John? Well, John didn't take it the way you said, Houston responded. This won't end well, Linda said. The senior partners are not happy. You need to come to the office immediately. I can't do this, Houston said. Honestly, I'm thinking about writing a letter of resignation. That won't happen, Linda said. You made commitments, and your partners expect you to fulfill them. I made a commitment to my husband first, Houston responded. And this is much more important. You can take your work and stick it to yourself, Linda. I won't be your woman of easy virtue. I'm leaving. Goodbye. With these words, she ended the conversation and looked at John, who nodded approvingly and smiled. They went back to the video. Linda stared at the phone for several seconds, her face turning red with rage. Then she clicked on several icons on the screen and addressed the men. The last signal from her phone came from an area that looks like a landfill on Highway 87, she said. Go there and intercept them. Bring them to me. Whatever you do, don't kill him. We need both alive. And now go. The four men nodded and left the house. Linda looked around for a few moments, then shook her head and walked away. The video stopped as soon as she closed the door behind her. Well, I'd say we have about an hour before they get here, Regis said. He picked up the phone and dialed the number. Operation Yard Dogs in an hour, he said before hanging up. Exactly an hour later, two black SUVs drove into the landfill. They parked behind John's car and stopped. Four men in dark suits got out and walked towards John's car, where they were met by two men in overalls and baseball caps. John, Houston, and Regis watched the meeting on video. How can we help you guys? One of the men in overalls asked in a thick Southern accent, smiling to reveal crooked teeth. His badge said Bubba. We're looking for the person who owns this car, said one of the men in the suit. For what? Do you want to buy it from him or something? Bubba asked. We need to talk to him, the man said, trying to intimidate Bubba with his height. He opened his jacket to reveal a pistol holstered under his arm. Where is he? Hey, T-Bone, Bubba shouted to his partner. Look here, this guy looks like he's carrying a gun. T-Bone laughed and raised his pump-action shotgun. It's not a gun, T-Bone said. This is a toy for babies. But this is a real weapon, he added, reloading the gun. The man in the suit raised his hands as a sign that he didn't want any trouble. We're not going to give you any trouble, he said. We just want answers, that's all. Well, we're out of answers, man, T-Bone said, but I have a bit of a thrashing in my backyard. I'll be happy to give it to you for free if you want. You realize there are four of us and only two of you, right? Another man in a suit intervened. Not so fast, kid, the third man said as he approached T-Bone. Why don't you guys get back in your cars and get the hell out of here before T-Bone gets mad in here? Bubba suggested, maintaining his southern accent. The people in suits looked around and saw several more men in overalls with guns and realized that they were outnumbered and outgunned. The second man in the suit put his hand on the first and said, We won't let Smith leave without knowing this, he said. We don't need to mess with these villagers. The first one nodded. You're right, he replied. Okay, we don't want any problems, so let's leave. He turned to T-Bone and Bubba. You didn't see us. Then get out, T-Bone said, and don't come back here again, okay? The other men in overalls laughed. The men in suits nodded and returned to their cars, all the while keeping their distance from the armed men. They drove away from the landfill, one car turning left and the other turning right. T-Bone looked at Bubba after the cars left and shook his head. Get the hell out. Where did you even come up with that? He asked, the accent gone. Bubba shrugged. Sounded good at the time, he replied, his accent also gone. T-Bone laughed and took out his walkie-talkie. The costumed ones left, he said. One headed north, the other south. Acknowledged, said the voice everyone recognized as Alpha One. Regis turned away from the video and pressed a button on his phone. Eagle One, this is Alpha One, he said. Do you see these two SUVs? I see, a male voice answered through the speaker. One is located north of the entrance to the landfill, the other is located to the south. Keep an eye on them, Regis said. Let me know as soon as they move. It will be done, said the voice. Regis hung up and looked at John and Houston. Let them cook there for a while, he said. They are clearly waiting for you to leave. I know, John replied. What are we going to do now other than wait? Regis looked at Houston. Now we'll get to work on you filling in all the missing links, he said. Houston looked at him in surprise. What are the missing links? She asked. Trust me, Regis said. You may be a little naive, but you are far from stupid. I know you have an above-average IQ, And I also know that there is a huge amount of information locked in your memory. I think it's time to contact her." "What do you mean?" she asked. "We'll use a form of hypnotherapy to help you remember things," Regis explained. "The firm has spent the last couple of months programming you. The drugs they gave you for the last 2 weeks were part of this process. We must eliminate this harm. I have no doubt that once we do this, you will remember much more than you realize." "Won't it hurt her?" asked John. Regis shook his head. "Not at all," he replied. "We have made significant progress in recent years. We haven't performed lobotomies for a very long time," he added with an ironic smile. John knew this was Regis's dark humor, but this statement shocked Houston, who looked to John for support. Regis chuckled. "I'm only kidding," he told her. "You'll be fine. I also want to find out what they fed you with." He took the phone, said a few words quietly, and hung up. "What now?" asked John. "Two polite men will be here in a few minutes to take Houston to our mental health specialist," Regis explained. "You can go with her if you want." "I want to," said John. "Will you stay with me?" Houston asked her husband. "Of course," he replied, holding her hand. A few minutes later, two men in white coats entered the room with a wheelchair. Houston sat down in a chair, and they set off. "They've been there too long," the senior enforcer told Linda as he watched the dump gates. There had been no movement for several hours, and the four men began to get nervous. "Okay," she said. "We know where they are. Return to base. We'll catch them later." The conversation ended. The subs returned the same way they came. Linda put the phone away and looked at George. "Looks like they couldn't get the Smiths back?" asked George. Linda nodded. "Yes," she replied. "What news about Greg?" she asked him. George shook his head. "Not very good," he said. "His injuries were worse than thought, and he may not survive until morning." "What are you planning now?" she asked. "Should we kidnap them and bring them here?" "No," replied George. "We'll take them to the beach house." "How do we get them there?" she asked. "I'll leave that to you," George replied. Houston said she wanted to submit her resignation. "Maybe we should let her do it. Make sure this won't cause problems. She's naive enough to believe you. I suspect her husband will want to come with her. Let him come. Let the security forces be ready to capture them both. I need to know how much he knows about our operation." "Why is this so important?" she asked. "I thought he was just a programmer for an insurance company." George shook his head. "That's not all," he said. "I just don't know how much more." "So you're planning on using Houston as bait, huh?" she clarified. "He will reveal everything he knows," said George. "Once he realizes how high the stakes are, he will do anything to save his wife." "I hope you're right," she said. George smiled. "I'm sure of this, believe me. Just get everything ready in the house," he said. "You tried to make him a willing cuckold. Now we will make it compulsory. And when we're done, we'll hand it over to new owners, and he'll die. With a little help from us, of course." She smiled at the thought and left the office. What neither of them knew was that a video of their discussion had just been uploaded to Alpha's servers. John sat in the waiting room while his wife underwent the hypnotherapy that Regis had mentioned. He said it would help unlock her memory. John had been sitting there for at least an hour when Regis entered the room. "Do you have a minute?" Regis asked. John looked up at him. "Of course," he replied. "Any idea how long this will take?" "I think at least 2 more hours," Regis said. John nodded and stood up. Regis headed towards the exit, and John followed him. A few minutes later, they found themselves in what Regis called his smoking room, a well-ventilated room with easy chairs facing an artificial fireplace. Regis sat down and motioned for John to sit down. He opened a small case and offered John one of his expensive flavored mini cigars. "Thank you," John said, and Regis lit his cigar. "I still can't believe they let you smoke this here," he added, enjoying the fruity aroma. "Well, yes," Regis said, shrugging. "This place was designed to withstand a direct nuclear strike. I think 1 or 2 cigars won't hurt anyone." John chuckled. Regis handed him the folder. John opened it and saw a medical report that didn't tell him much. "What is this?" he asked his boss. "This is a report on the results of your wife's blood tests," Regis said. "Pay attention to the two connections that are circled. One is a forcible restraint drug, and the other is a compound I haven't seen in a long time." "What is this?" asked John. "As far as I understand, in low doses it makes a person extremely susceptible to suggestion," Regis said. "Combined with the restraining drug, I suspect Houston was probably on edge. They could have told her to sleep with an army of wild dogs, and she probably would have done it. Honestly, I'm surprised she lasted this long. In any case, it turns out there is a federal group that monitors the use of this substance. They sent one of their best men. He should be here this afternoon." "I see," John said, enjoying his cigar. "Anything else?" "Yes," said Regis. "Omega plans to capture you too at the first opportunity." "We already know that," John said. "This time they intend to do it forever," Regis added. "According to the video footage we received, they are going to hand it over to some merchant from the Middle East and eliminate you by faking your death." "What's the plan?" asked John. "Obviously, we won't let that happen," Regis said. "We have people keeping an eye on them, so we'll know where it's going to happen. I have a conference call scheduled to discuss this." "May I be present?" asked John. "Sorry, son, this is above your clearance level," Regis replied. "Your main task is to be close to your wife." John nodded in understanding. They continued smoking cigars for a few more minutes before John spoke again. "Have you ever been married, Regis?" he asked. Regis glanced at him with his one eye. "Yes, a long time ago," he said, pain sounding in his voice. "What happened, if it's not a secret?" asked John. "The same thing that happens to many of us in this area," Regis said. "Too much time at work, too much stress from fighting the enemies of the country, and having to keep it a secret from those you love. You know how it goes." John nodded. "Yes, I know," he said. Regis looked at him seriously. "It was too much for my wife," Regis said. "I came home one day and found that she had left. She left a note saying that she had found someone else, someone who would be at home and could open up to her. On the same day, I received divorce papers. This was 15 years ago." "I'm sorry," John said. "Are there any children?" "Yes," said Regis. "Two beautiful girls. Their mother took them, and now they call some other guy Dad. I haven't talked to them for many years. I guess they've already forgotten about me. But things may be different for you." "I hope so," John said. Regis nodded. "Houston is a good woman," Regis said. "Yes, she can be a little naive sometimes, but she is smarter and stronger than you think, and she really loves you." "God knows why." They both grinned. "You need to be there for her, John." John nodded. "I know," he said, "and I will." "Okay," Regis said, standing up. "I need to make a call. You go to Houston. I'll write to you when I'm ready." "Got it," John said. He finished his cigar after Regis left, then went to check on Houston's progress. When he arrived, he was informed that they were finishing up and she should leave soon. John sat down and began to watch TV, but his thoughts were not with what was shown. About an hour later, the door opened and Houston came out. She smiled when she saw him, and he noticed that she looked a little different, although he couldn't quite explain how. "How do you feel?" he asked. "It's okay," she answered with a smile. John turned to the technician who was treating her. "Can she go?" he asked. The technician nodded. "Yes, she's free," he said. "They are already preparing a report for Alpha One." "Got it, thank you," John said and turned to Houston. "I don't know about you, but I'm terribly hungry. Do you want to go to the cafeteria and get something to eat?" "Of course," she said. They went to the cafeteria and ordered big juicy bacon burgers and fries. "You look somehow different," he said when they sat down. "Are you sure that everything is fine with you?" "I feel much better than I have in a long time," she replied. "My head seemed to become clearer." "Did you remember a lot?" he asked. "Oh, yes," she replied. Her eyes sparkled, and she continued, "I can't believe how close I came to cheating on you. Can you ever forgive me?" I think so, he said, opening the folder with the medical report. What is this? She asked. This is your blood test report, he said. They found traces of a restraint substance and something else that was supposed to make you susceptible to suggestion. Regis says with what they found on you, you were probably going crazy. Is that so? She nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes, it was so, she said. The last week was just hell. I could barely stand it every day. And those stories that Linda sent you, he asked. Have you read them? She nodded. Do you want to tell me about them, or can I guess what they were about? You can guess, but I'll tell you, she said. They were all the same. Husbands were weak, wives were women of easy virtue, and lovers were bastards. Husbands were humiliated, forced to watch their wives have sex with another man, and then forced to clean up after them. And did these stories excite you? Asked John. I'm ashamed to admit it, but yes, they were arousing, she answered. Between these stories and what Linda, Greg, and the rest of the girls said, I was constantly excited. Of course, now I understand that all this time I was stuffed with some kind of substance and programmed. Regis said it was amazing how long you lasted, John said. It wasn't easy, John, she replied. It was like two parts of me were fighting. Good Houston said, No, don't cheat on your husband, it's wrong. But Bad Houston whispered, Come on, girl, let Greg have sex with you, John will never know. I'm glad you listened to Good Houston, except for that last day, John said. Would you really have slept with Greg if I hadn't beaten him? Probably, she replied. No, that's not true. Yes, I would do it. And I'm so ashamed of it. John nodded. You reminded me very well of who I am then, she added, smiling at him. Will you ever be able to forgive me? I think I can, given the circumstances, he said. Just don't let it happen again. I promise, she said. I know I can be naive sometimes, but now my eyes are open. I have one condition, John said, with a smile on his face. Which? She asked. You're going to show me what you do with that toy someday, he said. Seriously, she asked, smiling. Do you want to see how I do myself? Of course, he replied. Why not? Maybe if you're nice, I'll let you watch me do it myself. You are so mischievous, she said. But I agree. John felt his phone vibrate and took it out. It was a message from Regis. We need to see Regis, he told Houston. Have you finished your lunch? She nodded and stood up. Yes, I'm done, she replied, finishing the last of her fries. John joined her and they went to Regis's office. When they entered, they noticed a man of average height in a dark blue jacket in the room. John Houston, Regis said. This is Oscar Warren from the Home Front Security Task Force. Oscar, this is John and Huston Smith. They all shook hands and Regis motioned for John and Houston to sit down. Home Front Security Task Force, asked John. What is this? I've never heard of this. Just like most people have never heard of you, Oscar replied. We are a public-private task force that deals with issues similar to what you are going through right now. He put photographs of 4 women on Regis's desk. Mrs. Smith, have you ever seen any of these women? Houston studied the photographs carefully and pointed to one of them. This one, she said. Are you sure? Asked Oscar. She looked at him and nodded. Yes, she answered. It was a long time ago, maybe a couple of years ago, but I'm sure. She was talking to George and Linda. That is, with George Black, the senior partner, and Linda Wharton, the head of the so-called executive support group, Oscar clarified. Houston nodded. Yes, she confirmed. Do you know what they were talking about? Asked Oscar. No, absolutely nothing, she replied. I thought she might be a client or potential client. Have you ever heard of MMAS or Mutual Marriage Assistance Society? He asked. Houston thought for a moment before answering. Yes, I have seen these terms, she said. They appeared in several documents that passed through my desk, but I didn't attach any importance to it at the time. The woman you identified was Pat Witherspoon, Oscar said. Does this name mean anything to you? No, nothing, she replied. Oscar nodded. Who is Pat Witherspoon? Regis asked. She was the lead mass agent, Oscar replied. She died about a year and a half ago in custody. And what is this MS? Regis asked. This is an organization originally created to punish men who cheat in marriage, Oscar said. But she was reborn into something else. What bothers me is what Witherspoon did in Omega. MS was in the business of promoting a dominant political ideology, so what did they have to do with a white slavery law firm? Good question, Regis said. What do you know about the house on the coast? He asked Houston. The company has a place on the coast, she answered. But this is not just a house. This is a whole complex with a pier and a helipad. I've never been there, but I was told that everything there is surrounded by a wall, and there are security gates. Top officials come there when they want to communicate with clients or just have a rest. That's where George and Linda were going to take you, Regis said. Houston was silent, reflecting on what had been said. Suddenly, her eyes widened. What's happened? Regis asked. I remember one of the girls telling me about a party she was at there, Houston said. She described it as a party with a lot of wild stuff, illegal substances, toys, whatever. That's where they plan to hand you over to one of their so-called buyers, Regis said. I think we need to contact the White House, Oscar said. Regis nodded and turned to John. Why don't you two go out for a few minutes, he said. John stood up and motioned for Houston to leave the office. As they walked out, Houston spoke. What did Regis mean? She asked her husband. Linda and George were going to make you a sex slave, he said. From what I understand, they were also planning to kill me. Oh my God, Houston said. What are they going to do now? I don't know, he answered. We'll have to wait and see. We didn't have to wait long. A few minutes later, the door opened and Regis invited them inside. When they sat down again, Regis pressed a button on his phone. We found this coastal complex, Regis said. You were right, it is surrounded by a wall, and there is a security gate. Looks like there's activity there. He pressed another button, and a video stream from the complex appeared on the screen. How is the situation there? He asked on the phone. We have everything under control, said a voice. Looks like there are 6 people in the main building. The 2 arrived by helicopter a few minutes ago. 4 of them appear to be security guards. There is also 1 woman and an elderly man. It's probably George and Linda, Houston said. Got it, Regis said. Wait for further instructions. He pressed another button. This time, the voice on the phone was different. Eagle 1, said the man. Eagle 1, this is Alpha 1, Regis said. Do you have visual contact with the target? Affirmative, Alpha 1, the man said. Armed? Regis asked. Fully loaded. Ready for action, the man replied. Regis realized what this meant. The agency's drone was armed with 4 Hellfire air-to-surface missiles. Wait for my signal, Regis said. Destroy the helicopter and demolish the main building. Accepted, replied the operator. At that moment, Houston's phone rang. She looked at the screen and silently said, Linda. Hi, Linda, Houston said, answering the phone. How can I help? Houston, I think we misunderstood each other today. I want to fix everything, Linda began. Will you and your husband be able to come to the house on the coast? When? Houston asked. Right now? Yes, now would be ideal, Linda replied. Can you do it? This is very important for George and for me. I don't think that will happen, Linda, Houston said. Not today, not ever. Actually, Linda, you can go to hell. Oh, yes, and one more thing. What? Linda asked, her voice sounding annoyed. Enjoy hell, bitch, Houston said, ending the conversation. She looked up at Regis, who smiled and nodded. Destroy them, he told the drone operator. Having received confirmation, they turned their attention to the monitor. Yes, Houston screamed. She clenched her fist, expressing her glee. John watched her with a smile, while Regis and Oscar chuckled quietly. It was certainly spectacular, but we still have to eliminate Omega, Regis said. John looked at him with concern. Regis noticed this and continued. I think you're worried that we just wiped out American citizens without a trial. Is this what you mean, John? John nodded. Yes, this thought occurred to me, he replied. Houston looked at him, amazed. They deserve it, John, she said. I don't argue with that, John said, turning to Regis. So, what do you say? You're right to be concerned, John, Regis replied. I think we should bring you up to speed, especially since you will be participating in the liquidation of Omega, he added, looking at Oscar. Oscar nodded in agreement. I completely agree, he said, turning to John and Houston. Do you remember the incident with the First Lady about 6 months ago? Yes, I remember they said she had a stroke, John said. It was a little more complicated, Oscar said. In fact, she was involved in a conspiracy against President Skaggs. She failed and ended up dying using the very drugs she planned to use on me. We are investigating to see who else may have been involved in the conspiracy, and we have reason to believe that Omega, or at least some of its executives, were involved. The substance found on Houston and the information she provided confirm this. Simply put, Houston was targeted because she saw and heard too much, Regis added, although she didn't realize it at the time. Plus, add a Middle Eastern twist. The man George was planning to sell it to has ties to terrorist groups throughout the region. For them, she was an extra link that needed to be eliminated. Who gave the order for their liquidation? Asked John. The order for destruction came straight from the very top, Regis answered. But the work is not finished yet. John nodded in understanding. Okay, he said. I'm in. Well done, said Regis. George Black drove along the coastal highway and thought about what he would do to Houston. He smiled, imagining having sex with her while making her husband watch. Linda was excellent at her job, and George had no doubt that she would be able to lure the couple to the beach house. Suddenly, he came across a police checkpoint and stopped. Rolling down the window, he turned to the policeman. Sorry, sir, but there was an incident up ahead, and we had to close the area, the patrolman said. We can't miss anyone. But I need to get into my house, George objected. Sorry, sir, but you'll have to turn around and go back, the officer said. No one is allowed to enter this area until permission is given. How long will it take? George asked, clearly upset. It's hard to say. Maybe a couple of days, the officer replied. George considered his options and decided to turn around. Thank you, officer, he said, turning the car around. He drove back, and in the rearview mirror, he saw the patrolman saying something on the radio. George pressed a button on the control panel to bring up the phone menu. He selected Linda's number and waited for an answer. He became worried when she didn't answer and thought it was strange since the call went straight to voicemail. This has never happened before, he thought. Linda always answered the phone. He ended the call without leaving a message. Then he pressed another button on the menu. I think we have a problem, he said when the person on the other end answered. Go back to the office, the man said before ending the call. For the first time since all this began, George felt real fear. What's the plan? Asked John. We have a team meeting not far from Omega headquarters, Regis said, handing him a piece of paper with the address. John memorized it before putting it in his pocket. I just got word that Black has been deployed at our outpost, so he should be there in an hour or so. Oscar and a few more of our guys will go after you, Regis added. I'm going too, Houston said. John looked at her in surprise. For what? He asked. It may be dangerous. I don't want you to get hurt. It's my decision, she said. I should be next to you. You are my husband. Where you go, I go too. John looked at Houston and saw something new in her eyes' determination. He looked at Regis, who nodded. This applies to her too, Regis said. John understood and looked back at his wife. Okay, he said, but follow my instructions. Understood? I understand, she replied. They left Regis's office and returned to John's car. Oscar joined the team members who brought him to the compound and followed John as he headed back to town. John and Houston didn't speak much on the way, but John thought about what had happened to his wife. On the one hand, he was worried about her safety, but on the other hand, he was proud of her. This might be interesting, he thought. They drove to the address Regis had given them, and John parked next to the mobile command post, a trailer filled with electronics. He got out of the car and opened the trunk as Oscar's SUV pulled up. John pulled out bulletproof vests and helped Houston put one of them on. "What is this for?" she asked. "I don't want you to get shot," he said. "Remember, do whatever I say." "I understand, John," she said. "I'm not stupid, you know." John smiled and kissed her. "I know," he said, kissing her. His thoughts were interrupted by a loud voice. "Smith?" asked a large man in a dark uniform. "Yes," John and Huston answered simultaneously. The man looked at Houston and then turned to John. "I'm John Smith," he said. "Special Agent Jones, FBI. We are starting the briefing," the agent said. John, Huston, Oscar, and the rest of the team gathered around a large table where Agent Jones explained the layout of the building and their plan of attack. As Jones explained the rather convoluted strategy for how they would get to the top floor, Houston raised her hand. "Yes?" Jones asked with dissatisfaction in his voice. "I have a pass that will give us access to the top floor," she said. "Wouldn't this be easier than everything you just described?" John smiled to himself. Jones's face turned red for a moment, but then he took a deep breath and nodded. "Okay, Mrs. Smith," he said. "We will use your pass. You will lead us to the top floor." She smiled sweetly at him when he finished. "Questions?" he asked. Everyone shook their heads. "Okay," he ordered. Forward, a group of heavily armed agents headed to their original positions. John checked his equipment one last time, making sure he had a full magazine in his pistol. "I'm sorry if I confused you," Houston said when he finished checking. He looked at her and smiled. "You didn't embarrass me," he said, hugging her. "I'm proud of you. I don't think anyone has ever silenced Jones so quickly." He kissed her and then finished checking his equipment. Oscar joined them, and they headed towards the building. George sat at a large conference table on the top floor of Omega headquarters and listened in shock as Jim Bradbury, the chairman of the board of directors, told him about the destruction of their waterfront complex. "What should we do now?" he asked the older man. "Get rid of all the evidence, idiot," Jim said. "I told you that if you don't start thinking with your head, this will all turn into disaster. But you didn't listen, and now let's get to work." George began to rise from the table when a large man in a dark suit entered the room. "We have a problem," the man said to the two managers. "The FBI is coming." "What?" George asked in surprise. "FBI," the man repeated. "They're everywhere in the building." "Run to the roof," Jim ordered. "I'll call a helicopter." "It's too late," the guard replied. "The FBI has already occupied the roof." "Damn it," George swore. "So what now?" Their conversation was interrupted by a loud noise as FBI agents burst into the room. The security guard reached for his gun, but the FBI agent quickly disarmed him before he could draw his weapon. John, Huston, and Oscar entered the room along with several armed agents. "Now you can become someone's toy in prison," John said, approaching George. He looked at Houston as she approached him. Without saying a word, she hit him with all her might. "I quit," she shouted in his face. John turned him over, cuffed George's hands, and read him his rights. Oscar did the same with Jim. FBI agents dispersed throughout the top floor and arrested the rest of Omega's top managers. All were charged with a range of crimes, including conspiracy to commit treason and human trafficking. Agents also confiscated all of Omega's files and were working to remove them from the building. As they watched the scene around them, John's phone vibrated. He looked at the screen and saw that Alpha 1 was calling. "Smith," he said, answering the call. "John, great job," Regis said. "Thanks, boss," John replied. "Look, why don't you and Houston take the rest of the week off?" Regis said. "On Monday at 7 a.m. she will start training." "Education?" John asked. "Yes," Regis confirmed. "I'm sure you want your new partner to be fully prepared for field work." "Did you say partner?" John asked in surprise. "Of course," Regis replied. "You work well together, and I like her approach. Now go and enjoy each other while you can." After the conversation ended, John looked at his wife. Having her as a partner would be interesting, he thought to himself. Is everything okay, honey? She asked. Yes, John replied. Regis gave us the weekend, and then you'll start training. Train? She asked. Yes, John confirmed. You will be my new partner. She smiled and hugged his neck. Partner, huh? I like the sound of this. Come on, Mr. Smith. I want to make love to you. Sounds like a plan, John said. They left the office holding hands and headed home. The senior members of Omega were tried in federal court and found guilty of all charges. They received the maximum possible sentences. Women who were part of the so-called executive support team testified in court, helping to secure a conviction. Greg never recovered from his coma and died of a heart attack the day the remaining Omega executives were found guilty. 2 months later, John and Regis stood in the gallery, watching Houston train with her hand-to-hand combat instructor. She's come a long way in a short time. Now she was not the naive woman John had once married. She became a strong, confident woman who could stand up for herself. John was proud of her progress. Tell me something, Regis, he said, watching his wife. What? Regis asked. Did you do something to her during hypnotherapy? Asked John. No, Regis answered. What you see now is the real Houston Smith. We simply helped her realize her inner strength. You haven't changed your mind about her being a partner, right? Not at all, said John. Actually, I'm looking forward to it. Okay, Regis said. She only has a few weeks of training left, and then I have a task for you too. Is it true? Asked John. Which? Not now, Regis replied. When she finishes, it's probably already lunchtime. Why don't you take her out to lunch? Of course, John said. He walked downstairs and entered the gym just as the instructor was leaving. Houston noticed him, wiped the sweat from her brow, and ran towards him. What do you say, partner? She asked, kissing him tenderly. Great job, but I think you should take a shower before lunch, he said, laughing. She laughed in response and playfully slapped his arm. After lunch, I'll take you to the shooting range, he added. Oh, can I play with your gun? She asked. You're clearly in a playful mood today, he remarked. I'll prove it to you tonight when I pounce on you, she said with a smile. She has always been fun in bed, but since she started training, she has turned into a real wild tigress. I can't wait, John said, watching her head into the shower. He admired her toned legs and buttocks. Yes, he thought, life promised to be very interesting. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.